Hi, Fabiano. Be very, very welcome. Really happy to be with you guys. If you can tell me where you're from, I'd really appreciate it. I'm good, Vanessa. Thank you for asking. Give me a few seconds. Hi, Zeleni, Maria. And you're going to get started. Colombia, that's so cool. Sao Paulo, Catalan. Well, lovely. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us in this webinar. Curitiba, I lived in Curitiba for some time. Yeah, okay. New Mexico, wow, amazing. Well then, be very welcome. Let's get started. First of all, hello everybody. Welcome to webinars, Disal webinar. This is Design Thinking for Educators. And let's get started. So I'm Lenora Haranaka. I'm from Sao Paulo, but I live in Campinas. I've been living here for a long time now. And just to give you a brief idea of who I am, well, I am a teacher. I've been teaching for some time now, like long time, and I'm passionate about languages. I adore education and study about education. I'm really interested into design and learning about design, and I love people. So combining everything, I came across design thinking some years ago with Marcelo Del Pino. Thank you, Marcelo. And I really fell in love with studying design thinking and how it can help us in our lives and as teachers as well. So I got really interested in the topic and then started studying, and it's like studying it forever. What we have for today, so let's take a look. We're going to have a very brief history of design thinking, so really brief because of our time constraints. Then we're going to tell a story and share with you a case study. Then I'm going to dive into design thinking for educators, why and how. Then I'm going to take a look at the framework together, core values and principles, and then you have some time for questions and answers. But feel free to ask me questions during our talk. If I can keep up with the chat, it'd be a pleasure to take a look and answer them as we go, okay? So far so good, sounds like a plan. Okay, so to get us started, during our webinar, I'd like you to consider and think, have some questions with you so that hopefully we'll be addressing those questions throughout the webinar. What is design for you? Also, why design thinking? How can it help you with your profession, with your life as a person, as a professional, as a teacher, coordinator, whatever post you have at the moment? Why design thinking for educators? And what are the benefits for using design thinking for learners, for teachers, for schools, and for society as a whole? Yeah, so have those questions in mind, and hopefully throughout our webinar, we'll be addressing them, okay? So a bit of history. So when we start investigating and study design thinking, we'll come across different names and different theories and different schools. Just to have a very brief overview, I always like to mention that when you think of design and design thinking, we go back to the Bauhaus school in Germany, where the concept of design was really explored. This is in the 1920s, and due to the effects of the First World War, they were rethinking society, rethinking life, rethinking our everyday world, and how we could meet the demands of the modern society. So there was a lot of rethinking or reformulating going on. And then as we study design thinking, we come across different names, yeah. Overall, for example, okay, if you can say so, people like Herbert Simon, with his book, this from the late 60s, early 70s, his book of Science of the Artificial. He was a researcher, and he studied really people's behavior, how we make decisions, and how we can connect human behavior, the environment, and how it affects our decisions, and how we can design solutions for people. So when the design meet people's needs, then there is a whole match. So he studies all those prototyping. He also talked a lot about rapid prototyping. Horst Retail comes with the concept of wicked problems or complex problems and how we can solve them. So there's a lot of theory going on. We have to mention also, for example, Donald Schoen, who with his book, The Reflective Practitioner, in which he really explores the side of design through cognitive reflection and cognitive explanation. So he's more reflective. He focuses on the process of designing. And then when you start studying design thinking, you have to choose the person or the writer or the line you want to delve into and pursue. Yeah, there's a lot of work going on in Harvard and Stanford universities, and interestingly enough, we focus on design thinking for educators, but the concept of design comes from other sciences, from engineering and architecture and sciences that they deal with problems and they want to find solutions. So they ended up coming across this way of looking at challenges, problems/challenges, and think of creative, innovative ways you can address them. And we have to also mention that we also have in Brazil lots of people looking into design thinking and working with design thinking. In 2010, a Escola Superior de Propaganda and Marketing started having a course on design thinking, also the design lab from USP, and also from the design lab from FI. So we do have lots of things going on in Brazil as well when it comes to design thinking. Yeah, and when you think about design and our ability to look at problems, finding solutions from a different perspective, we have to think of or have to rethink our concepts, because we are dealing with human beings and you're trying to innovate and you're dealing with very complex subjects or problems. We have to deal with ambiguity. So we are not looking for a solution straight away. We have to enjoy the process of designing, and for those we are designing for, and dealing with those wicked or complex problems, and finding the purpose and the influence of the environment as well. And what's interesting, when we look at design thinking, we are changing our mindset in the way we approach problem solving. So we are looking at humans, it's a challenge, we're focusing on the user's needs. In our case, teachers, would be talking about learners, teachers, and families and schools. There's a lot of optimism going on when you're working with design thinking. We have to develop this very inquisitive mindset, and lots and lots and loads of observation, collaboration, and passion, and fun. We have to have fun in the process. Yeah. So I'd like to share with you a case study, a quick story to tell you that will help us go revisit the design thinking framework. There is this case study called Embrace Warmer. There was a problem. Like, the problem was around 15 million babies are born preterm. And every year, there's about 1 million deaths due to preterm labor complications, mainly related with hyperthermia. So a group from Stanford University decided to investigate this problem. They focused on India. So the problem was basically in India, where we had a high percent of babies being born preterm and dying. Hospitals, lots of villages are far away from main cities and far away from hospitals, and they had They say, okay, they don't have incubators, so what are you going to do? So this group of students in Stanford, they came together and tried to think, okay, how can we help them and create an incubator that costs like 1% of the price, and so that they can have access to incubators and help babies that are born too soon be okay and be healthy and safe. Took them about 30 seconds. Easy, donations. So Hospitals in first world countries could donate incubators and then send to India. Problem solved. It happened. Was the problem solved? Not really. Why not? Because when those donations got to India, they had no electricity at all times. So this was a problem. So, okay, let's regroup, rethink. And they came up, if you can see in the picture, they came up with this babe warmer, which is quite interesting because it keeps the baby warm without electricity because it has batteries. Beautiful, problem solved. And there was a sign in this baby warmer with the correct temperature, like 35 degrees or so for the moms to keep the babies warm. However, there was a little detail. Do they trust Western medicine? Not really. So even though they had the embrace warmers or the baby warmers, they weren't using the right temperature because they thought, okay, if it says 35, maybe I should live in 34, 32, because 35 may be too hot for my baby. Then again, regroup, rethink, because they needed some sort of symbol that would help the moms in India believe this is the project, but not let the bias towards the Western medicine interfere. So what did they do? They changed the temperature for smiley faces. So when the moms saw that they should have the temperature here, then the baby would be okay and happy and safe. And then it worked. What does it tell us? What it has to do with design thinking? So we have to know, really have to know our audience, who we are designing for. So it is not what we think of them, but what they really need and who they really are. So take a look at this quotation, please. This is one thing that design thinking teaches us. So when you listen, when you look at people, really have to think and realize if we are really seeing them and listening to them, or are we just having our own filter and seeing what we think about them and listening and getting ready to answer instead of actually listening. So this is one of the most important things I've learned from design thinking is to be non-judgmental, learn to listen, and learn to see people not from my thoughts, but from who they are. Easy? No, not at all, but quite interesting and exciting. So why should we think about design thinking for educators, which is us? Yeah. We have now to consider two aspects here: teachers and learners. We can, of course, talk about families and schools and the communities around them, etc. But I would like to focus today on teachers and learners, because we can use design thinking for teachers to develop themselves, for professional development. So when we have our students, our challenges, our problems, we can think about all the problems we have and then choose one specific challenge to work on and then devise a whole process of design thinking to address a problem. So this is one thing for the teacher, for her or his own professional development, or for the school or for a group of teachers to work together. Another thing is for us teachers also to start using design thinking with our students in our classrooms. So this is quite interesting because then we will be teaching them to look at problems. I like the word challenges better. So they'll be looking at challenges differently, not focusing on finding immediately the solution, but the challenges is about who is involved in the challenge. Who are we designing for? What are their needs? What is the environment? And many other questions we'll be talking about in a moment. So there are these two areas where you can choose to work with. Yeah. When you think of learners, it's quite interesting to consider that once we start implementing design thinking in our lessons, be it English or any other subject, we'll be really working with higher order thinking skills. maybe for teachers, the first thing that comes to mind when you decide to implement design thinking inside our lesson is student engagement, yeah, and excitement. And for the teachers, this is I'd like to show you a short video, because if you think from the teacher's perspective and the professional development, we are really talking about a change in mindset, in working collaboratively with other teachers, and sometimes hopefully also with other people from the schools, be it secretary or coordinators or directors or people from library. Or it's interesting to have from other parts of the school, not only the teaching staff, but other members from other areas. So I'd like to share with you a very short video showing a little bit about the teachers or possibilities for teachers. So just a sec, please. Here we go.
When I first came across design thinking, I was skeptical and I didn't want another thing, right? Another thing added to the plate.
For 15 years, I've wanted to have a career in education, but it's been an emotionally rocky road. I've been frustrated, I've been really happy, I've felt really sorry for myself, and I've been enormously proud of my work. I don't know any teacher who hasn't gone through dark times and light times trying to make their way. Sometimes I think education is a circus. We are just contained in this tent and we take it down in the summer and then we put it back up every fall. In 15 years of teaching, it never occurred to me to look outside of the tent. So a group of designers came to our school and they helped us realize that as teachers, we were designing all the time.
And this is the word.
With the right tools, we had the potential to design a better system. But it isn't that simple, right? They don't have a formula, just do it this way.
So for a year, we tried. We placed objects around the campus to promote discovery. We designed an ideal teacher's lounge. We built an online collaboration tool for our teachers. And we are currently in the process of redesigning our ethics program. And over again, we've hit walls.
And every time we came back to the table and explained, this can't work, we can't possibly do this. And every time they came back to us and said, but you are doing it. Optimism is not lacking in schools, but it's all reserved for our students. You know what it means for a student to have someone who believes in them. Consider how many times you've pleaded with a child not to give up after one bad day or one bad grade. But who believes in us? Do we believe in ourselves?
I think if teachers viewed themselves as designers, if teachers believed that they could affect change, if they really believed in themselves, I think a much better system is possible.
Okay. Yes, Christine, I'll share with you guys a link for the video for sure. It's from the website that's shown in the end, but I'll share it with you guys later on. Okay, no worries. So, as you could see in the video, this is an invite for us to think about on our role as teachers and how much we can do in our classrooms and how much we can do for our own professional development. So when we understand that this puzzle, teachers, learners, and the mindset we teachers have, and the mindset we have in our classrooms and we help our students develop, everything fits together, it could be great. Probably a lot of work initially, it is what it is, but the benefits, or in the long run, the benefits are enormous. Yeah. Thank you, Sonali. Thank you very much. So when you think of that, let's take a look together at the framework. Yeah, and this is quite interesting. Brilliant. Thank you for sharing the website. So let's take a look at the framework. And if you have any questions as we go over the framework, please feel free to just type them. Okay, so we start with the first stage, which is the empathizing moment or stage, in which here is quite important to understand what the problem is. So the objective here is for us to gain a very empathic understanding of the problem we are trying, or the challenge we are trying to address. So we have to understand the students' or people's experience. We have to understand their motivations. We have to understand their pains. Yeah, we talk a lot in design thinking about the pains that the user or the student or the teacher have. So if possible, we can also immerse ourselves into the physical environment of where the people or the problem is, if possible. Yeah. So in this stage, we will be gathering a lot of information. Just a second. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So thank you, Lucila. We'll be gathering a lot of information. Thank you, Lucila. Okay, so now that in this stage where we gained a lot of insight into our students and into their needs, you would move on to the definition, so to the defining stage. Why is this important? Because then we have a lot of information for the empathizing stage. Now it's time to analyze that information and try to categorize them into different issues. Here we have to look at the challenge or the problem from a very human-centered perspective, or from a human-centered manner, and you will see some examples later on. Once we are able to decide where to focus on, we're able to define the problem in this human-centered manner, we would move on to the ideation stage, or to ideating moment, which is extremely interesting. This moment, as you see, there's lots of brainstorming going on, but it's usually different from when we say, oh, let's brainstorm some ideas in the teacher's lounge or in a class or in a lesson, because here we have, or we can't be afraid of silly ideas. So the main thing here is to gather ideas, lots and lots of ideas. And usually people are afraid of saying something silly or saying something that is not feasible. So we have to create an environment of collaboration, or the people involved in the project, that ideas are always welcome. There is no judgment, there is no good or bad, there is no silly or something useless. There are ideas. Later on, we'll see what is possible, maybe immediately, maybe possible in the future, maybe possible in a long distance. So the idea is really generating ideas. And there are some techniques we use to generate ideas. Brainstorming is probably the one that people know the most, but we also have brain writing, brain walking, Scamper, and lots of other techniques to ideate. Once we have lots of ideas collected together, we are going to start prototyping. And here comes what is, for me personally, was quite interesting and different, because when you're prototyping design thinking, it has to be fast, cheap, and as soon as possible. So the idea is to have something, a prototype ready. It can be on paper, it can be a digital prototype, it can be with cards, and for example, if you're prototyping a website, you can even have lots of cards and stages, and you would have as if they were screens. You can do it digitally if you like. But the idea is to have a very scaled down version of the project. So some people like to call it the minimum viable product, and lots and lots of experimentation. So all the ideas, they have to come up to be some sort of prototype. And once we have the first prototype, let's put it this way, it's time to test. And what is also exciting about design thinking is that once you test for the first time, you will gather feedback. And once you gather feedback, you may go back to the ideation moment, because the test and the feedback might give you new ideas, and those new ideas will provide you space for new prototypes, and then you have to be retested, and so on and so forth. So the test will address the empathy moment, because you're looking at the people, say, does it work? And so the cycle might be never-ending. Of course, we need at some time you will have to stop, but the idea is quite interesting, because you can refine again and again, and it's okay, really. So there's a lot of experimenting going on. Let's see, are there any questions so far? Yeah, but yeah, yes, I'll have some. I can share with you guys later on also some books to recommend, absolutely. Well, then, another way to look at the framework that I particularly enjoy is looking at this. For example, imagine some teachers together, maybe some people from the secretary, or even people from the canteen, or people from different departments in a school. They get together and they can make a list, or post-its, as people like to work with design thinking, we love post-its. We can take notes of many issues that you are having, problems or challenges you have been facing. So you're collecting lots of challenges together. So here, in the empathizing moment, you're creating alternatives. So you're opening up possibilities. And the next moment, we are going to define. So you have to make choices. So with the lots of issues or problems from the beginning, we can kind of categorize them. So maybe you have issues related to physical spaces in the school. We have issues with homework, or issues with students not opening cameras, student behavior, or problems with some sort of contact with parents. There are different problems going on. And now when we define, we have to choose where we want to focus. So we choose this very specific challenge at that moment. It doesn't mean that you're not going to address the other challenges, but you have to choose where to start. So we choose one thing to focus on for a moment. Then we're going to open up again, ideation moment. So here we have to create possibilities and to create alternatives. And when you choose to work in a group of professionals, please make sure that all ideas are welcome. There is no silly things, there are no silly ideas, no one is better, no one is worse. So the thing is to really be together, because people have unique perspectives and unique ideas. So the more, the better for the process. Yeah. And then again, once we have lots of ideas, it's time again to make choices and move on to the prototype. And so this movement, opening up and then defining, and then opening up again for ideation, and then defining for the prototyping moment, so that we can, yes, Andrea, we can go back to testing. Yeah. So, and once we test, I've had the opportunity to develop a project together with some co-workers, and the testing moment was quite exciting, because we gathered lots of feedbacks and things we hadn't thought about. So that's why we went back to the ideation process and even to the empathizing moment, and we started the process again. Because when you put something for people to use, then they will experiment with it to see if our design addresses their needs, not what we think their needs will be. So it's quite interesting. So welcoming feedback is quite important as well, because it allows us to rethink and redesign and readdress the problem if necessary. Yeah. Okay. Now let's also consider a little bit the core values and principles of design thinking. One thing that is important is experimentation. So usually we are very much used to showing things to people or to showing to the world when something is completely ready and tried and tested and cute and ready to go. In design thinking, we don't have that luxury because we have to test something. So once we go through the 5 stages, we have to test it so that we can go back to the ideation moment and prototyping if necessary. So experimenting and not being afraid of making mistakes is really important. So making mistakes are actually part of the process for real. It's not like just a theory that usually people say, we learn from mistakes. No, mistakes are welcome because then we will learn if what we are designing addresses the needs of the people we are designing for. So when we think about our learners or our students in our schools, sometimes we come up with beautiful solutions for us, but do they work for them? So how much dialogue is there between what we think is wonderful and what actually they actually appreciate and see value in? Yeah? Another important value in design thinking would be empathy. And this is something that is, I mean, it's a buzzword. People talk about it all the time. We have been talking about empathy for quite some time. And currently, I personally believe that being able to be empathetic towards people is extremely important because people are going through so many different things and we are facing so many different challenges in our lives nowadays at home, people who are not at home, and etc. So as teachers, we have a huge responsibility of not judging, being able to help and to be empathetic and seeing all the sides of the picture. Yeah. So I would dare to say that being empathetic is more than being in someone's shoes, because we have not only to be in their place, but we have to feel what they feel and see what they see. And this is hard. This is not easy because we have our own histories, our own life, our own beliefs. And when you have to be in somebody else's place, sometimes they have a different belief. And then it's complicated when you have to, not let go of your beliefs, but try to understand somebody else's beliefs. So this is quite interesting to develop this exercise of accepting people from who they are and from their perspective. Usually we say we have to treat people the way we like to be treated. But once I heard quite the contrary, and we have to treat people the way they like to be treated. And because maybe the way I like to be treated is not the same way that you like to be treated. So I have to know who you are and what your needs are and what your preferences are so that I can design something for you. Yeah, no easy picnic. Yeah, no. But anyway, it's quite exciting. Also, it requires a lot of collaboration. And again, this is quite interesting because in the moment, the last year, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I have never seen so much collaboration going on among teachers. This is my area, so they come from a school. So people have been collaborating a lot, more than when they were in face-to-face lessons. And this is quite interesting, really, because in hard times, we get together and help each other more. But then again, in design thinking, this collaboration, it's very interesting and very valuable for the process when you can have people collaborating from different sectors of the company or the school. Why? Because they will have different perspectives. So teachers, usually we have our point of view from teachers, students, teacher school, teacher parents, and so on. But when you bring someone from the secretary, someone from the, let's say, the library, someone from the cafeteria, someone from the cleaning staff, someone from the marketing department or the coordination of, so you put people from different departments together to address a challenge together, it will be richer. You will have different ideas, and the process will be more beneficial for the student, yeah, for the who we are trying to help and design for. Also, there are some agreements, yeah. So we have to agree, and this is something quite interesting that I learned when I took design thinking course with Marcelo Dalpino, that all ideas are welcome, all ideas and opinions are welcome. And there is something we have to do in our team that is not saying is not enough. We have to create an environment where people feel comfortable to share and feel comfortable to say what they think, because they know there won't be any kind of, looks or any kind of, people commenting or anything of the sort. They will know there'll be no judgment. So we have to devise this cohesiveness in the group collaborating together, because at the end of the day, we all want the same. We want to be happy, we want students to succeed and have a great life, and we want to develop professionally and want to have a great life as well. So really, so the more together we work, the better for everybody. Usually, seed ideas can be fantastic. So do share them. If you think, this is so easy, so simple. Sometimes I say that, this is so simple, everybody does that. Not really, not necessarily. Yeah, so do share all. And we have to turn on our active listening mode. What does it mean? Every day, usually, we listen, getting ready to answer. So I'm listening to you, but I'm already thinking what I'm going to reply. It's quite relaxing when we listen for the sake of listening. You don't have to have an agenda. You don't have to prepare for battle or prepare for answer. Just listen. And we can ask questions to check if we are understanding correctly. But active listening is quite relaxing, really, because you're listening for the sake of listening and getting to know who you are and what your opinions are. So it's not easy, because we do not learn that in kindergarten or in school, but it is exciting when we try to do that. Yeah. So we also have to not to be in our everyday mode. So we have to be very, very much aware of the moment, of what you are doing, who you're working with, and listening mode on, active listening mode on. And also talking about principles, we have the concept of, we have the user, which in our case would be our learners. We have our challenges or problems. We have the context we are in, but the main focus will always be the user. So we are designing, we are really designing for our learners. Yeah. So this is quite interesting for us never to forget. Yeah. So with that in mind, let's look at 2 examples. So let's say one example coming from another area first, and then you go into education. So what do we mean by human-centered approach? So for example, let's imagine you are designing a new login screen, and the question is, which is a question to make sense, that makes sense. How could we make the login process faster? Because when we have to log in websites, the faster the better. But this is a question that focuses on the process, not on the people. Yeah. So maybe one possibility would be to ask, how could we deliver value to our users without having them to log in? So imagine yourselves trying to log in a website, or we're going to buy something on the internet. You have to fill in all the information, name, address, phone number, etc. So for me, it's kind of boring. If I cannot log in, brilliant. So log in with Google, log in with Facebook, or I don't know much about how safe this is, but anyways, I love it. I just clicking one thing and psh, all the information is there for me. So as a user, this is value, because I don't have to waste my time typing anything like over and over again. In an educational setting, for example, the question that we talk a lot about is the problem we have been facing is how could we make our learners open their cameras in online lessons? Then again, when we ask this question, who are we focusing on? We have the cameras, so the process. We are also focusing on how the teacher feels with the cameras off, which is a valid feeling because it's not very exciting to teach lots of, black squares, but it is what it is. But instead of focusing on the process or on the mechanical issue, the technical issue, we could focus on the people. So one possibility, one way of looking at that and addressing that would be, how might we foster group cohesiveness so that learners actively participate in class and as a consequence open their cameras? This specific issue has happened with me. We have been having this problem, and we have discussed it a lot in the school where I work for. And when we asked ourselves these questions, or these questions specifically, we ended up finding out that open cameras had nothing to do with learning. Some groups had their cameras closed the whole semester, and they were extremely participative and engaged and attentive during lessons. So as we saw in the beginning, is the mindset of the teacher had to change a lot, because if we foster group cohesiveness and people feel comfortable with each other, they are more likely, it's no guarantee, but they might be more likely to participate more actively in the classroom, and then open their cameras even if they're wearing their PJs. So I was talking to a mom the other day at night, and she was wearing her PJs. I was like, and her camera was on. I was like, she was okay, so I was okay. So when we look at the people and we design for the people we are working with, we are dealing with, everything changes. So this is an invite for us to rethink the way we look at things. Yeah, and the more we work with other people from other departments, the more our minds open and we widen our repertoire, really. Yeah. So one possible definition, or summarizing what design thinking is from Tim Brown. Yeah, so he's the CEO of IDEO. He says that design thinking is a human-centered approach to innovation, but he focuses on the people. So he joins the human aspect, the technology aspect, and success, and the business aspect. And this is quite interesting because whenever we are designing for someone to use a product or a service. In our case, it's more like a service. But we have to consider all the aspects that are involved so that we can think in our own designs. Yeah. And I'd like to invite us to think about, of course, I am in Brazil, but we could talk about a number all over the world. But in Brazil, for example, in Brazil, we are 2.6 million teachers. And my question would be, what will we design? So what is it that we want to design in our personal lives as professionals, in our own professional development, and what do we want to design in our classrooms, in our schools, at this moment. So this is a question for everyone, for all of us to think about in terms of what is it that we want to design in a moment that we are going to through so much change so quickly, and we are being asked to be resilient, flexible, and innovative, and happy at the same time. So design thinking is a way that also helps us teachers deal with all this huge amount of changes that are going on nonstop for more than a year now. So, and if you look at into the future a little bit, probably there will be more changes coming. So why not let go of this being so certain about everything and diving into this mindset of let's experiment more collaboratively and build something together for our students. So with that question in mind, I'd like to open a little bit for questions that you might have. Let me just take a look. Some questions. I'm going to go from the newer ones to the older ones. Okay, so Luciana is asking about giving some tips about the incidents of inappropriate parent interference and disruption in the online learning environment. This is let me just try something here. Yeah, this is quite an interesting question. Just a second. Just a moment, please. Questions. Yeah, so yeah. Can you see the questions? Yeah. Okay. So this is Luciana asking us about inappropriate parent interference. This is a super interesting question. Yeah. Luciana, because once here we are dealing with parents. Imagine yourself as I'm not a mom, okay, but if I were a mom and my child would be having a lesson in my house, I would be maybe in the beginning together with my child to see what the teacher is doing. I would do that, honestly. I know it's not appropriate, but I would. So it has happened to me this semester. I'm teaching little kids, and all the moms were there, all of them. In the first class, what I did was, when I ended the lesson, I told the kids, call the moms, bring them here, let me talk to them. And then they all came and introduced myself, and I explained about the course. We talked a little bit about how much support the children needed, what I expected from them. I asked them what they expected from me, and relationship. I do believe, look, this has really to do with relationship, because once we establish a connection and a dialogue with the parents, and it is clear what we expect from them, and we know what they expect from us, and we have some arrangements, it tends to be smoother. So I shared a Google Doc with the homework and what those technicalities, and now life is good. And every class I ask any questions, and the kids have been telling me, my mom has nothing to say to you today. Bye. I say bye, and we're good because there is dialogue and there is connection. Human connection. I would go for that, Luciana. I hope it makes sense in your context. I'm not so sure, but I do hope it makes sense in your context. Okay. Let me just see if we have any other. Thiago is asking any course on design thinking to suggest. Well, actually, I do. If I may, this is what I'd like to show you. There's going to be a design thinking for educators starting in May at Faculdade de Cultura Inglesa. This is where I work for. And I super invite you, if you want to know more information about it, please go ahead. I'll be delivering this course. I'm really, really passionate about it. So I'll do my best that you have the best course possible. But yes, we have on May 4th, okay? Let me see. How about adolescents with their cameras off? Jasmine is asking about adolescents with their cameras off. Well, Jasmine, there is one thing with adolescents that I find quite fascinating, which is, do you remember being an adolescent, how we felt? Is one thing is being in a classroom where I can kind of hide behind my peers. Zoom classrooms is like my face and you, like my hair, my I have two nieces and they are teenagers and they won't open their cameras for nothing. And they're so beautiful. So the thing is, when you're going through adolescence, there are so many issues going on psychologically and emotionally. So the teacher, I'd highly recommend we focus on developing social-emotional skills, even spending time in our lessons to develop those skills that will help them feel confident enough to one day open their cameras, even if they have pimples or the hair is messy or whatever, because we are adults and we are kind of confident, kind of. Imagine adolescents. So working on, if I may, Jasmine, I'd highly recommend working on social-emotional learning, developing social-emotional learning skills, because we have to prepare them for life, to be strong people and face work at life and what's coming in the future. So they will have the cameras off for some time, and we teachers have to challenge ourselves. Is cameras on connected to learning? Of course, we have this fear, but if the cameras are off, are they there? Or are they watching YouTube or doing whatever? They might be in this context that we have. So I would go back to relationship. If we have a relationship with our learners, we might have more chances of having them with us. And why not use design thinking with them? We can pose this as a problem in the classroom. So we have this okay, we have lessons online for one more year. Hope not, but so what are we going to do about this problem? What are the possibilities? Let them come up with solutions. Let them come up with possibilities. Let them experiment as well. The solutions don't have to always come from the teacher or the teaching staff. We can involve learners in finding solutions. Okay, you're not going to open your camera. How can you help me, teacher, perceive your learning? And they have lots of great ideas. So when maybe if your school allows you to do so, when you're gathering together to address problems, invite a student. Let's listen what they have to say about it. They might have brilliant ideas and a unique perspective because they are on the other side of the screen. It's their camera we want to open, not ours. So we have to listen to them. Yeah. So I hope it makes sense to you, Jasmine. Well then, yes, it's being recorded. The webinar is being recorded. And well, I think this is, so there are lots of, Jasmine is mentioning, I asked about, because there are lots of distractions. There's lots, I mean, let's be honest. In my time, I had Sessão da Tarde. It's a television show to compete with my studies, and I always chose television programs. Nowadays, we have computers, tablets, cell phones. The competition is not fair. So that's why also another advantage of using design thinking in our lessons is to make it more real, to let them be in charge of solving problems or finding solutions for real life problems. So sharing with them the responsibility of having an exciting lesson, because it's 50-50. It's not only on the teacher, it's also on them. If you want to have a fun lesson, be part of it. They have to be part of it. Otherwise, I can't make it everything as a teacher. So we have to make it together. So this is another advantage of using design thinking in our lessons, for them to experiment with the stages and the process of everything. Yeah. But I agree with you, Jasmine. The competition is not fair. It's just not fair. Yeah. Okay. Well then, I think we don't have any more questions at the moment. So I'd like to thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure to be with you all. I hope it has helped you somehow, inspired somehow to dive into this design thinking world. There's lots of learning, like it's forever. But to give it a try, I'm sure you'll be, books. Maria do Carmo, if it's okay, I'd like to share with you guys my contact information, and I'll be more than happy to share and send you guys a great list of videos, books, and everything for you to get more information on design thinking. Okay, thank you so much. And I'll see you around. Do email me, I can share the presentation with you guys and I share information about bibliography. Thank you. Let me see, just a sec. Anna, you were asking if do you consider if I am so rude if at the beginning of the course I set the rules and I can explain it kind of clear that the parents cannot interrupt in the middle of the class. If they have to, in comments, they have to come after class. I don't think it's a matter of being rude at all, Anna Ruth. I think it's a matter of setting and aligning expectations. Yeah, I would probably introduce myself to parents before the lesson, before the course starts, via email or any other communication means you have in your school, so that they can get to know you. And when introducing myself, I would lay down some ground rules and leave myself available for questions or suggestions later on. Yeah, but I don't think it will depend on the manner you say that. If you are kind and you explain why you were doing that, I don't think you'll be being rude at all. Yeah, just minding the way you are conveying your message to your parents. Claudette, there are resources for teachers, a very interesting website. Can I kindly ask you to email me, and then I will email you back with lots of suggestions, promise. Okay, thank you so much. Have a lovely weekend and see you around.